Welcome, Kingslayers. Today is October 21st, 2022. My name's Danfinity, and welcome to Destiny Digest. Right off the rip, I just want to say thank you for nearly 200 subscribers to the podcast. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the show, and what a show we have in store for you today. But before we go too deep, I would like to say thank you to Sherpa for helping to segment produce and to be a sounding board for each episode. And special thanks to Andrew Gomez for creating the awesome theme for the show. Be sure to check out his musical adventures on Twitter and Instagram, and go follow Sarah too. She's wonderful. I really couldn't make this show without the contributions of both of those amazing humans. Today we have a girthy panel discussion about PVE on the docket featuring CdoubleG, SarahJenea, aka Vertigo Vixen, EpicDan, and BonaFideHiro, talking about our experiences as Sherpas, where they see the current state of PVE in Season of Plunder, and the systems we have in place, and what we would like to see in the future. If you feel so compelled, and you're enjoying the show and you want other people to hear it, please drop a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. Anything you say helps us in the algorithm to get this in front of more folks like you who have a passion for Destiny 2. And hey, thanks for being you. Anyways, enough housekeeping. Let's get to the news. On Tuesday, hotfix 6.2.5 went out across the servers, bringing with it the weapon changes and adjustments we saw Mercules talk about in last week's TWAB, as well as a plethora of other changes for ruffian spawn rates and expeditions, up by 7%, and fixes for stabilization of mechanics and duality and known issues in the Kingsfall raid. Gearfalcon's Halberg also made its glorious return. Just to brag a little bit, I ended up having it drop on my first completion of the 1600 Lost Sector Tuesday. Just a little humble brag there. For a full list of the changes from 6.2.5, check the notes for the show. Tuesday also brought with it the return of the Festival of the Lost. Ava is back in the tower trading candy for wares. This seasonal activity is LITE light. I felt that way about most of the seasonal activities in the past. The loop is kind of like last year's, if not the same entirely. You get spectral pages by playing activities with a mask on. You go to the haunted lost sectors in the node branching from the tower to turn those into manifested pages. You then return to Ava to deposit those pages in the book for lore and exchange candy for weapons and gear. This iteration seems to be buggier than some of the other event drops, with some pages disappearing and activities not counting. Compounding some negative sentiment in some players' minds is an event pass that seems to loom larger with each passing event, leading to some disgruntled articles and tweets from members of the community. Now, this could just be my take, but disclaimer. I'm all for supporting development, and I don't want to tell you how to spend your money. For my dollar, the event passes don't offer anything I would personally want, and I engage with the seasonal events very lightly. I skipped out almost entirely on last year's festival, but I found myself grinding out pages as something passive to do while I farm red borders and other activities. You don't have to spend money to enjoy the events. If you have Bright Dust, you can purchase the latest mech armor ornaments with it. This is a Team Monster House, by the way. And the new sniper, the macabre. I know it's a riff on macabre, but anyways. It drops with this pretty spicy initial roll from the quest that was fixed on Wednesday. The event may be worth just touching base with it for that, if for nothing else. One thing that I'm really enjoying about that sniper is the little anime sound effect that happens when you fire it. It's pretty neat. I'm pretty enamored with it. Wrapping up the news, we saw a smaller TWAB than we've had in recent weeks. It covered the basics of the Festival of the Lost while also positing a fun challenge to the creative folks of the community. For the duration of Festival of the Lost, Bungie will be giving away prizes and a sweet new emblem, the Hallowed Coronation, for artists, editors, pumpkin carvers, and fashionistas daring enough to participate. The full rules for entry are in this past Thursday's TWAB, also in the show notes. In Season 19, we will be seeing some chase weapons rotate out of the special playlist activities. Those weapons are specifically from the Iron Banner, Forges, Pledge, pulse rifle, the Riz Walker shotgun. From Trials of Osiris, we see the Aisha's Embrace scout rifle and very popular Reed's Regret linear fusion rifle, leaving that playlist. From the Nightfall rotations, we see the Duty Bound auto rifle and the Silicon Aroma sniper rifle moving out of those playlists. Be sure to get out there, Guardian, and snag those roles that you've been looking for from those activities for the duration of Season 18. I know for sure the Reed's Regret is going to be very popular, so maybe we'll see an uptick in some trials numbers. Before we get into the panel, I know you guys are all waiting for it. We have a huge shout out for former guest and lore aficionado Psalmlab on being last week's community focus. Real proud of you, man. It's always awesome to see good people prosper, and you deserve it. Now, for the State of PvE panel with EpicDan, SarahJenea, BonaFideHiro, and CdoubleG. Glad to have you all here. We did a couple weeks back, I did a PvP panel with several folks, 2 hardcore, Lego LaFlash, and Ill Physics. And we talked about the state of PvP at that time. Some things have changed since then, but I think the general sentiment has stayed the same. And so I've invited a crack team of PvE Sherpas here in CdoubleG, EpicDan, Vertigo Vixen, and BonaFideHiro to come and speak about their experiences in the season, to speak about what they think the state of PvE is currently in the game of Destiny 2. But first, why don't we get everybody to introduce themselves in case people don't make it to the end of the episode? At least they can find you on the internet. Let's start with you, CdoubleG.
Oh, what up? I'm CdoubleG, and I've been a PvE Sherpa for 4 years now is when I started streaming, and that's when I started Sherping. And yeah, I mostly just like doing raids. I live in raids. I don't really touch the GMs and stuff like that too much anymore, but yeah, just raid Sherpa. Hi.
Hi. Well, welcome in. EpicDan, what about you?
I am EpicDan. I'm trying to think how long I've pretty much been playing Destiny since its original inception in 2014. And I've been playing pretty much ever since, and I've been, I guess, doing the whole raid helps, PvE helps thing since taking King. And I'm pretty much EpicDan everywhere. Look up EpicDan, you'll find me.
Heck yeah, you'll find him. Yep. Vertigo Vixen.
Hello. So I'm the Vertigo Vixen, or SarahJenea. I know a lot of people say that a lot of different ways, but it's Jenea. So if you try to look for me on Twitter, you can try that, or you can just type in the Vertigo Vixen. And I guess I've been, I don't even know how long I've been doing raid helps before I knew what I was doing, I guess. And in D1, I didn't even know there was a word for that. So, but yeah, I started about the Taken King in D1, and D2, we just started reaching out and seeing who needed a fire team, and raids, GMs. I can't really help in PvP, but anything else, I gotcha.
Gotcha. So I'm kind of the same way in PvP, at least.
No PvP.
Bona.
Hello.
Sir. This is your second time on the show.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
So welcome back.
Nice to be back, man. So I'm BonaFideHiro. It's just exactly the way it's spelled, but it's an I in hero instead of an E. So yeah. Doing what we sort of refer to as Sherpas, guides, whatever. You know, I don't even know if there's a sort of time sort of on it. It's just, you know, you jump in, help people out on LFG. You know, there were days where you were just bored, and you'd see people post up saying they're having issues with the thing, whether it be a raid or just a nightfall, whatever. Whether that be, I don't know if it was D1 or D2, but yeah, just ages just guiding people through activities. Would consider myself more of a grandmaster sort of guide, just grabbing people every single day that sort of want to get their weapons or their seals done, whether that be gilded or first time seal. And yeah, I also dabble whenever the new raids or dungeons come out. Yeah, take people through for the first 2 weeks. I can never catch up to CdoubleG, but I always set him as a target to try and chase, but there's never any catching up to that man. So yeah, it's just fun. Any sort of PVE content, end game content, I'll try and help peeps out with. So
heck yeah. So one of the questions, so I always find this interesting. There's a lot of people play the game. A lot of people play for loot. A lot of people play to just have something to do or for the gun feel and things like that. I find that the Sherpa's role is interesting because it's kind of like a selfless act as well. What got everybody involved not only in Destiny 2 but in like the Sherpa side of things? Was there like a moment where you're like, I'm going to help people and dive in, or is there a little bit more to your story?
Okay, so like my story is probably going to be a lot different than everybody else's story because I never had any intention of helping anybody. I was toxic LFG, know what to do, or I'm going to kick you out. If you die more than twice and make a swipe, I'm kicking you out. Like I wanted to get my stuff done. I wanted to get my loot. This was in D1. And it just was so frustrating. And it went on into D2 and Leviathan, even Leviathan. But like one thing happened to me with Prestige Leviathan that made me like stop and think. And we did Prestige Leviathan the first day. And then we wanted to do a second run and we got people from LFG. And some dude was like really upset that we were getting mad at him because, again, I'm still toxic at this point. And he was like, bro, it's been out for 6 hours. I just got off of work and I just really wanted to do this. I don't know why everybody's yelling at me and getting mad at me. And I'm just like, damn, this has just been out for 6 hours.
Yeah.
like, why am I jumping down this dude's throat like this or whatever? So I took a big break from Destiny after that point and then come back to Forsaken. And I was just thinking when I wanted to come back to Forsaken and I wanted to go get started streaming, I was like, what can I do on stream? Especially people's not going to watch me if I'm getting mad at everybody. So I'm like, maybe if I help people, all the people I'm getting mad at, I can actually help them get better at the game. And it also gives me content and I'm helping people at the same time. And I get to have people that I can play with all the time because it doesn't matter if you're good or bad. I'm going to teach you anyway. So like, that's how I got into the whole Sherpa thing. Cause I'm like, I always say this all the time on my streams, like I'm a reformed toxic LFGer because that's where I came from. I used to be that guy. So that's why I also could understand where people come from dealing with LFG because I was that guy. So I get it. Yeah. But yeah, that's my origin story from villain to hero, I guess.
A whole arc.
Yeah. It's still forming, bro, slowly and slowly.
Yeah. All right, Sarah, what about you?
Well, I think in D1, we had one of somebody, just like a mutual friend, like a friend of a friend, and he had lost oxygen to his brain as a baby. And so he had a lot of like obstacles. And just, I mean, we always played with them and we would have to like adjust, certain things. You know how it is, like he had some hand-eye coordination kind of issues and stuff like that. So it would be like you would have to look at something a little bit different and just kind of adjust, around him to make it, to just kind of like help him out and make sure he could get through it and still be a part of that. And I never even thought about it, but somebody was like, oh, that's so nice that you give back. And I was like, oh, I guess, we're just, we're just playing. And that's how it is. Like how you had said, like you're like increasing your player pool. Like if you're teaching other people, like you can always like have people available, like that can raid with you and stuff like that, especially like back in the day. But I mean, I did have rough times and stuff like that and crying in raids and everything. And it was like, But
Oh man.
yeah, I had like some bad times in Kingsfall, bad internet, bad just people on LFG as toxic as can be, and it's like, oh, just scared of everything. So I did meet a couple of cool people that were like, well, you're kind of like, they would give you good, not really even criticism. They would just see what you were doing and say, okay, well, this is me. And so I was like, I just met some really cool people and wanted to kind of be that for somebody else too, if they needed that, So
Hell yeah.
try to put a little bit of good out there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan, what about you?
I'm trying to remember. I think I had friends. I think part of it was just streaming Destiny at the time. I would be streaming Destiny 1 and would just be playing just with friends, just, doing Kingsfall. And I'd have someone come in the chat and be like, hey, can I join? And then they'd be like, I don't really know what I'm doing. But I'm like, yeah, we can show you. Yeah. And I think it kind of just steamrolled from there. You have someone just on the one side, you're just looking to fill a spot. And since you're, at least for me, since you were streaming at the time, you had people coming in that were looking to do a raid. Maybe they didn't have the best luck on LFG. And a lot of times that's kind of how it started for me until it just became just, hey, I like doing raids. The people that I'm playing with together, we can not so much carry someone, but we at least know the raids well enough to where if someone's not the most comfortable in the raid, we can still help them get a completion of the raid in a somewhat manageable time while allowing them to have, the experience of doing raids. Because especially way back in the day, there was not the whole Discord LFG thing. There was literally 100 IO.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then Destiny LFG.net, and both of those were at least 100 IO you could at least schedule, but 100 IO didn't allow you to just on the fly find a group most of the time. And Destiny LFG.net was just luck of the draw way back then. So I remember a lot of people just stopping by and be like, "Can I join the next round? Can I join?" Oh, we had someone leave. Is anyone in chat willing to join? I haven't done it before. Well, we can take care of that.
Easy.
So that's
Gotcha.
kind of how it started, just having people needing to find someone to play with, which back in the day was way more difficult than it is now. So just as, I guess, as time went on, especially as people stopped playing Destiny, player groups needed to find new people to play with. And that's just, I think, for the most part, that's how I got into it. It's just, since I still like playing Destiny, just wanted to help other people play Destiny too.
Heck yeah. Red. What about you, Bona?
It's kind of a mix of everyone's sort of stories. It's really cool to hear. I guess mine was
like LFG too?
sort of.
It's like a Sherpa.
You were the guy I avoided.
It's like a Sherpa support group right now.
Where's my toxic people at?
I thought I recognized CdoubleG.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I think I remember this guy from LFG.
We've all obviously had our sort of experiences with LFG, and I sort of jump. So I remember the days of Xbox LFG, and everything like that. It was more, I guess, starting off community based, and I have been from community to community over the years, man, from game to game, and just you got a big pool of people, varying different skill sets, varying different times and commitments to the game and elsewhere, and some people you really like, and they don't have so much time, so you appreciate their time, and the time they get on to come and play and hang out, you would use that time to sort of play with them and show them through activities. And if someone's like, I just got in from work and I want to give this a go, but I don't have that much time, so you'd be okay. Let's do this encounter for this hour. on Tuesday night. We'll hit the next encounter on the Wednesday night. We'll, hopefully get it done by the whole thing by Saturday. Right? I remember many cases like that with friends in our community and stuff like that. So it wasn't so much starting off just random people for me. It was friends of friends and community members on whatever platform we were on at the time, whether it be there was those Facebook pages where you'd have so many different admins and groups and all that all over the place. So yeah, it was more guiding through people we knew, sort of to start off with. And then when I started streaming, I didn't start streaming to seek to get anything really out of it, but more of a way to, I didn't have the money to buy any recording sort of equipment or anything like that. But, for me to be able to clip silly shit that happened whilst I was playing. And so the amount of times I kill myself or like some weird glitch would kill you. So that's what I started for. And then, you start streaming and all these people are coming in, oh, can I play? I'm like, you want to play with me? My dorky mug? He's like, what? And I remember, obviously, I'm sure we all remember 2020 with the pandemic, but I remember setting up, being streaming for a couple of months, and Age of Triumphs hits, and what was the other one at the time? There's Age of Triumph, and there was another one, and they were vaulting all the raids, the Leviathan raids, Crown of Sorrow, and Scourge the Past, favorite, miss you, buddy. So they did
Arrivals.
that, and it was like if you had 20 plus completions in a raid, you would you'd get 50% chance of getting the exotic to drop. Dan, I remember you had a you would, that's one thing that was one of my first memories of Dan, was he had the anarchy goal thing of like trying to get like 100 people, 100 people
so
anarchy. So he has like this anarchy of this goal. That's like one of my first memories of Dan back in 2020. And
I remember I talked to Mr. Goodbites to build that thing, and it involved like 8 different, it involved like 4 or 5 different interconnected things. It was like a Rube Goldberg machine to just even put that up on the screen,
right.
but it was bonkers.
So you had that, and people were coming in just like random. I'm like absolute small fry, like averaging less than 10, and you just get whether it be 1 or 2 people at a time coming in and like asking to help get their triumphs done and get their seals done for Age of Triumphs and stuff. Okay, well that was my first taste of being kind of like a sought after sort of community guide, and everyone's working from home at that point, or they're not in their jobs and been furloughed, so everyone's on playing the games. So there was just so many people trying to do it. It's crazy. And you figure out how to do raffles and queues and all that very quickly when you got so many people coming and hitting you up. So yeah, that's I guess that's how it all started for me.
So what I'm hearing in a lot of cases is it was the need for connection a little bit. Like just having, like, you expanded your pool, you made friends along the way, you were teaching people how to fish so they knew how to fish themselves. Those kind of like stories through all of it. I came from the complete blueberry side of things. I was the blueberry that didn't have a mic, that like would message people through the PlayStation messaging that I saw in the tower in D1. And that worked out for me once. And that was like, I want to be that guy for other people. And so like, that was kind of my story. Now we all have our moments of toxicity. CdoubleG. I'm sure, I remember there was a, I think it was when Wrath of the Machine dropped. I had got into an LFG with like in the 100.io with just like a random group, and that being a very weird situation. But that's like the interesting commonality, like in this game, in like the gaming community as a whole, is like the seeking for connection and trying to find people who want to play kind of the same things as you, as well as teach other people how to do activities. I know with Lightfall coming up, we're getting an LFG system added into the game.
Yes.
What are everybody's feelings going into Lightfall, knowing that that's on the way, and how do you feel like that will affect the game overall?
I'm very excited about this. If we're talking about sort of toxic and egos and everything like that, I want to get up there. I want my score, and the fact that other people have to, leave their experiences on you and sort of rate you sort of after activities. From what we've seen, it looks quite well, and you can make up and it's kind of fill in the gaps, in between what they're saying, and kind of theorize how each little part's going to work. But I think this is something that both for PvP and PVE, we've needed for a very long time, to have some sort of social ranking system. And straight away, I hope there's no way that you can sort of farm it and it can be sort of unbiased and cheesed and all that. But I would like it to be very genuine, and I want to get my name up there. I want to go for sort of high sort of placements when you go to see those sort of leaderboards and everything. And I want to see sort of other people that I know, do well already. And I want to see them up there. So, whether that's a bit egotistical of me, but it's something to sort of strive for. And then when you do these guides and these Sherpas, and you put it out on your stream and you put it out on as content, people can look at your name and they'll see that it the card fits. So
So yeah, how is that supposed to work? Is it like the new like guided light or guided games thing?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. They're adding the LFG in for activities for everybody. They're also adding in a commendation system, which looks like it is going to be working in tandem with that LFG system. So as you get activities done, it'll rank you up in different ways, and people can leave certain commendations on you. I don't have I used to have a list of the ones that I saw for the Lightfall reveal. I can't find them. I didn't prepare that in depth for this, but like there's but I know several of them are for like, hey, this person was helpful, or it was fun to run with them, things along
so that's that only line. Useful if you're using the LFG thing in game, because if that's the thing,
I hope so. I hope so.
If it's like that, I probably won't be using it much. Like I'm not, if I'm on stream or helping people, I'm going to be streaming and I'm going to be helping my community for the most part. And I won't be jumping into a LFG like in-game thing to pull people from that when people from my community are absolutely going to need help during Lightfall. Yeah. So like if there's no accommodation system for that, I mean, are people going to think I'm trash at what I do because I have low accommodation? Like, I don't understand. Like in that regard, I'm not too fond of it the way that it is, if that's how it is.
My understanding
I won't be using it.
Was that it was after any activity you played with someone, no matter what activity you play for, where you have the post match report and everything, it's going to be there, and you're going to have every individual person there. So whether you sort of make a thing, but I don't think you could. I think from what I saw again, very quickly from when they showed it, was you can't just keep playing with someone and keep doing it. I think there may be a cooldown on when you can do it, or maybe you never be able to do it again. So I think they have stuff in place from what I saw, but
so you couldn't just farm it.
You can't farm it. And it's not just locked to that. I'm sure, like, please correct me if I'm wrong, someone somewhere. But from what I saw, it was any activity.
Even if you made a fire team yourself, like
I believe so. Yeah.
So then it probably can be farmed, because that's just how they farm the raid report with their Sherpas, just doing checkpoints over and over and over. Unless you have to do a full activity, we don't know that detail yet, but.
Well, and if it locks out your account from being able to rank somebody multiple times within a certain period of time. That could also be a thing too. But it's a system that we're not entirely sure.
I think that it's really not going to be a system that might be used by people who are known or people who, maybe it is more of a system for the LFG so that you know who to avoid, who on LFG is helpful, who isn't going to treat you like garbage. I think it's really going to be helpful for people like that in that way, not really necessarily even for myself because I don't, run on, well, I do LFG a little bit, but maybe more so for the people out there coming to streamers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It could be a way to sort of funnel people towards this new side of Destiny. That there are rewards for making these placements and getting these certain tier of commendations. Just reading up on it just now, there's split up into different categories: ally, fun, mastery, and leadership. And then you've got commendations that then, I think they said 13 unique commendations available underneath each one of those. So,
oh, you found the list?
Yeah, I can put it in.
He found the list.
Just a quick sort of thing. Yeah, it's it could be a way for them to try and shift the focus of help more people out through this way, and will sort of reward you. And is way I could see it going. So,
Dan, what are your thoughts?
I am very torn on it. I kind of feel very similar to a lot of the other people here. As far as the LFG system, as far as the history of Destiny as a whole, the whole outlier for the majority of the community has been this dialogue of, I would be more in tune with the end game if there was in-game matchmaking. I would be able to play this more often if there was in-game matchmaking. I don't like to only have to go here. I don't like the third-party matchmaking system and all this stuff, which I 100% agree with. It should be in the game. The LFG system that's coming to the game is a good addition. However, I do already see multiple flaws with the system, either in its ability to be abused or in its ability to just not be used at all. I do feel that if the LFG system fails, the one complaint that the majority of the community has, as far as I can't do GMs, I can't do raids, I can't do trials because it doesn't have matchmaking, is now gone. And I'm curious what the conversation will be around this stuff, because the majority of the community's one complaint is gone. Now, that being said, we don't know how the LFG system is going to look. Even though it was announced back in August, it could be drastically different in February.
True.
Just like anything else. So I do think it's way too early to have an idea of if it's going to succeed or fail, because they could come back in January and tell us, hey, we're going to change it dramatically. We're going to make it a lot more simple. What we said in August with the Lightfall showcase just didn't work out. We found this to be a lot more simpler, or whatever. Or they could go more in depth. I don't know. It's way too early to tell. In developments, we all know they announce one thing, they find in testing it doesn't work out, they change it, and then we get a totally different thing. So I do think it's a bit too early. As far as myself, I don't think the system's going to be very useful for someone like myself, but that could be also a detriment, because like has already been said, if you look at Raid Report is abused dramatically as far as CPs, as far as if you look at like the people Sherpa, there are ways to abuse that system. I am 100% certain that there's a very, 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 very high chance this system would be abused. However, the people that are making it are previous Destiny content creators themselves. Like, I think T-Rex is one of the people that helmed this system. So that, knowing T-Rex himself and knowing he's one of the world's first raider, he has played Destiny since its inception as well, and he plays WoW and Final Fantasy, and he knows those systems very well. I am, for the lack of better terms, I am putting a lot of my faith in this system and my understanding and respect for him. You know, I think T-Rex is going to make a very, very, very good system, considering who he is, considering he knows a lot of the game, because we've all seen him, play the game. You know, we know he's a world first raider. He has the experience and the resume to back it up. That being said, there's probably, just like everything else in Destiny, there's going to be a way people abuse it. Or there's going to be a way people that don't use it it'll get tossed to the side like guided games. I just don't want to see LFG system to be tossed to the side like guided games. I am very hopeful for the LFG system and the commendation system, but I have my fears. Yep. But we'll see. We're still like 6 months out.
That's a very genuine take, and very optimistic of you. Really, it's really cool.
I've thought about it a lot, and I don't talk about it a lot because a lot of people either are for it or against it. But I've spent a lot of time thinking of it and all of the pros and cons and what'll come from it, what might not come from it. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, Daniel, your whole whatever is going to be all up in smoke because of it." And I'm like, no, not really.
Yeah.
If anything, it's a help. It's a help to the system, either for the people that either don't like streamers, because there are some, or don't, like whoever. And I don't think my position in the community is going to be, or anyone's really, is going to be changed from having a low commendation rating because I don't engage with the system as much as someone else. Just like my raid report is pointless to someone who engages with it way more or abuses it. Yep. So I'm not threatened by it. If anything, it's a help to me. So as long as people think of that way, because I've seen a lot of people worried or taking it too seriously. One, is just a game. Two, it's, if anything, it's a help to those that either can't be helped by streamers or communities in general. Think of it as a help, not a detriment.
Yeah. So. But I do fear that. I'm sorry, but I do fear.
Oh, go ahead.
I do fear that what LFG would do in game with the matchmaking is people complaining that they keep getting put up with terrible teams, just like how solo is with PvP. Yeah. It's just like, oh, I always get terrible teams in GMs. I always get terrible teams with raids. And most of the time it's just you, but that's neither here nor there. Like
they don't want to hear that.
They don't want to. They don't want to hear that. But it's always, they're always blaming somebody else, and I feel like that can be one of the downfalls to the matchmaking for endgame content, is because they're getting paired up with people at their skill level or maybe below their skill level. Because I don't think they're gonna put like skill based matchmaking and PVE activities with.
Oh dear God!
Even though they could with the API,
I think it'll be region. They'll just make it connection, someone close to you.
Absolutely,
that's the safest bet.
So that I see that as being a problem, the biggest problem, honestly. But other than that, I don't think the accommodation system. I don't even think nobody's gonna judge people based on their accommodation system. If it's high, they'll be like, "Oh my goodness, it's so high." But if it's low, I don't think anybody's gonna be like, "Oh, it's low." Like, nobody's gonna say that. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think people will abuse it unless they tie cosmetics to it.
Yeah,
or seals.
I doubt those. Maybe seals, but not cosmetics.
Well, I've heard rumors that they are going to bring back the like flaming helmets thing,
the glows,
but tie it to a certain rating of a glow for high master or high leadership or high whatever the other ones, having a different glow tied to that for each season and having that reset each season. If that's
they're gonna force me to play that. They're gonna force me to play that.
Exactly what I'm saying. Exactly what I'm saying.
But again, it's still 6 months out.
Absolutely.
So that's it can be changed.
I still don't think I could ever ask anybody to leave me a good review. That doesn't feel good to me.
I don't know.
I've done that
You
out of
know?
jokes. I don't know if I could do it for real. I've also had a thing where I would tell someone after a completion of something, don't forget to give me a good
Don't
review
forget
on
to
my
rate and
Yelp.
review.
Yeah, that's just out of joke. I don't think I ever do it for real. But like, hey, make sure you like give me a 5-star on my Yelp review. But like, that's just a joke.
That doesn't feel good. But I mean, you guys, everybody has like their community already to where those people that know how smooth it is to raid with you, how you'll teach them things. People always they know where it's good.
If it's a good hang,
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of those things where I don't feel that some of the things that I feel like would hurt it is lack of use, much like we saw with Guardian games. But exactly what you're saying, Dan. Or not Guardian games, but guided games.
Yeah.
Because the wait times on that were awful. Like on both sides.
Yeah.
Did you ever use it?
I still use it.
You use it?
You still use it? Dan?
Use it?
How long are
I
you
do.
waiting generally?
I do every time a new raid comes out, I do 2 streams of just guided games, one as a guide and one as a seeker, just to show people, one, the experience, and 2, how bad it is. I don't want to say bad, but in theory it's good.
Yeah.
It's bad.
I did that
Now,
a long time ago,
as a
but-
seeker, if I take 3 other people, so it's a 4-person seeker looking for 2 people, the average wait time is 2.5 hours.
Oh God.
What's funny is if it's a 5 seeker for 1 person, it's about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That being said, regardless, there are people looking to use it only because that's the only in-game system, and they think that's the only way I can matchmake, quote unquote, for a raid or a nightfall.
That's the only resource.
But it's also it's the only one, because I think a lot of
Not
people want
everybody's on Twitch.
LFG. Yep. Or a lot of people don't know about Discord, all this stuff. You would be surprised how many people don't know about Discord or don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
So every time I talk to someone about matchmaking, they think that the guided games is the only way to matchmake into something and get something out of like playing that in-game content. But that's only because that is the only in-game implemented system. And unfortunately, third-party systems will never be better than an in-game system, which is why a lot of people are very hopeful, including myself, of LG. But I like to do the streams of like, I did a Seeker stream of Vow of the Disciple that took 6.5 hours of just sitting in orbit.
Damn.
And the funniest one is I did one for Last Wish when it first came out, and that Seeker, like me looking for a 5-person group, took 5.5 hours. And when I got into a group, all of them spoke Mandarin and I spoke English.
Oh wow.
So imagine someone trying to get into endgame, finally getting someone, and you don't even speak the language that they do.
Did you get it done?
Luckily,
Wait 5
Interesting.
hours. Wow.
I got it
You got it
done,
done.
but also I like to do a thing where I pretend that I'm a fresh player. I don't put on any seals. I don't put on any in-game meta loadouts and just run like some very basic stuff, making
All
it
blues?
seem like it's my first time. Yeah, all blues, a couple legendaries, some very basic armor or what have you, and go in. They just carried me the entire raid. Now, I was fine because I knew what I was doing, but I pretended. They literally 5-man the entire raid,
Crazy, man.
which is not the experience that you want people to have. I
Right.
went into a DSC when it first came out and did the exact same thing, and the person that joined literally didn't speak my language, and I remember having to use Google Translate. And I kind of had it set up to where the Google Translate could go through my mic or whatever, so I could speak to them.
Yeah.
Damn.
They couldn't understand me still, but at least I could speak to them in their language through Google Translate.
I've done that.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
That's unfortunate that you have to go through all that. Imagine someone trying to get into Destiny in game and I'm gonna try a nightfall or a raid, and they have to go through all of that to get a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. So, like, I absolutely hate guided games because of what it could have been and what it is now. But I always do those type of things just to show the content. Like, man, this could, but it's terrible. It's so
Did they lifted the clan requirement? Because that's when I tried to do it back like years ago, or whatever, and you can only do it with a clan of like 3 people.
So, as far as I know, that's still a requirement. You still have to be like, it has to be clan mates. Yeah. But what I've also found, I remember doing a guide to games, I want to say back when Scourge came out. And I wanted to test whether or not you could abuse it by having someone seek, as in you, someone in your clan seek, and you, rest of your clan, guide.
Yeah.
What I found is it will, at least at the time, because this is back in Scourge, like 2018, 19, it will not find someone on your friends list or in your clan. And I remember the moment I took the person off my friends list, this is also in BattleNet days, I took them off my friends list, and they left the clan, and they seeked, and we instantly matched each other. Instantly. But I guess that's because it wants you to invite them to your clan afterwards, so I guess that's why.
Yeah.
I've done that. Like all of my Sherpa's emblems. So for those that don't know, when Beyond Light came out, all of the Leviathan Sherpa's emblem were removed from the game because you couldn't use them anymore, right? And then they brought them back later on so that people could get them from any raids, not just Leviathan or Leviathan layers. And we decided we would get them. But we went for like Garden and those raids that, well, there's legit nobody that does guided games because, like Dan says, first, there's nobody. And then second, those are old raids and people were playing new content, right? So we cheesed it.
Yeah.
We went in with somebody that was not on our friends list. We would seek and search at the same time and we would match. And we did, I don't know how many requirements. I think it's 50 encounters total for like the biggest emblem. And we did that. I think we did like 4 Garden and 3 Last Wish or something like that. I don't remember exactly, something like that. But yeah, you can definitely do that. And so people that are seeking the emblem, that is the fastest way to do
That's
so.
how you do it. Yep.
That's how you do it. Because otherwise, either like you said, I have a friend of mine who went and did a Last Wish. They were a group of friends together, 5 people, then up matching with somebody that was Chinese. And they did the raid. They tried to explain the raid to him, but like you said, they don't speak the same language. So yeah, you have to have 2 to 3 people from your clan, 2 other people from whomever clan, and then you have to match with somebody that's in neither clans. And yeah, that's a thing. I can confirm as recent as Beyond Light at least. So yeah.
Wow.
Every single person I know that has those emblems have all done the cheese.
That
I
one.
The
did.
only reason
cheese
I don't have them because I haven't done the cheese, but like the one time I was working on it was back when they first came out. They came out way back with Last Wish. And then, like they said, they removed them and then they changed the requirements and they just made it to everything and all that stuff. But I know of multiple people that literally do the exact same thing. I know of a couple of people in my community who they have a weekly guided games night. But
my goodness.
They do the raids. They do like all the raids, but they do it in the guided game system. They just one person just decides to be the seeker that night, and then they just join up and they do a bunch of raids, so everyone can get the emblem and get like their stats for guided games buffed up and stuff. Because if you remember, if you go to your clan tag, there's still
You get rep.
a guided games rep thing, and they like to keep their guided games rep at 100%. Crazy.
Good on them.
I got mine done because I used to like to keep our Oath Keeper score or whatever up all the way. So that's why I had mine done, because we did. It was during Last Wish, and we would go in there, and there would always be people using it, though, you know. I mean, it was still, they had to wait a long time because, like, we would ask them. It really wasn't ever very long that we'd find somebody right away. So we used it
I thought
for
it
a
was
while.
cool initially back when they introduced it with Leviathan. I the first time I touched it was when Leviathan first came out, and I will never forget. I'll never forget asking the person that we matched it with. He was a French speaker, which again, that was a bad start anyway. Luckily, he can speak broken English. You know, he can speak it well enough to understand, but he was a French gamer. And I remember asking him, this is way back in 2017. I was like, okay, I'm curious. How long have you been waiting in orbit as a seeker? And he's like, I've been in this queue for about an hour and a half. I made lunch. You know, I've been doing my dishes, and I just walk by every 5 to 10 minutes and see if it's found the group or not. And I was like, I pressed like start 30 seconds ago and found you. So it's tough being a seeker, but the guide side is like super, super easy.
The 3 times I've done it, we've gone in with a fire team of 5, but we found someone within, Dan, as you said before, roughly 3 minutes. 5 minutes maybe at the most. But we found a random there. Going on to the sort of conversation, Dan, smack me on the wrist if this is going too far off topic. But, breaking past the boundaries of sort of language and communication to do our guides and do our Sherpas. The amount of times I've gone in and sort of done, resorted to sort of LFG after the first 2 weeks of training, like running out of people in the community and close by that you had to do raids for. So you go to the Bungie LFG and all that, and you post up a post and just do one after another. And I remember DSC, we got 2 guys from Romania that spoke barely any English. So trying to teach DSC 3 weeks in, that was a toughie. And then as of recently, it's I've had quite a big uptake of people with who are hearing impaired, who running through raids where you have to use call outs, and running Grandmasters where you explain the priority of, we take these ads out, we move here, this is the position we're going to take up, don't kill this guy, go for that guy first. So trying to put that into chat and use the text chat. Does anyone have any experiences with
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I'm glad they added it to like console. Like they added the text chat to console so that they can at least see us talking to them, like typing. They don't have to type back, but as long as they can read the chat on console now, it makes it a lot easier to deal with people who can't hear very well on console.
And even then, you can just copy paste something from Google Translate and toss it.
That's true. I haven't had to do anything like that. I haven't had anybody like with foreign languages or anything like that, I don't think. But definitely hearing impaired.
I mean, I haven't either. Our buddy Mike speaks Spanish, so anytime that, fortunately enough, like when we ran into some people, like Spanish was easier for them, so it worked out like perfect. And so I haven't. But
that would be tied to the region. Obviously, you're in on the hours.
Yeah,
you play,
I'm probably in a different area.
I remember.
So it's like
if you're up too late playing on oceanic servers when I used to live in Australia, you'd run into Japanese players all the time, and I'm not fluent, but I speak enough to get by, and I understand after giving it a moment of listening to what they're saying. So that sort of again came in handy. Sort of if you wanted to do a late night raid. So it's good. Sorry for that detail.
No, you're all good. This is great. So moving into kind of like more current events, how is everybody finding Season of Plunder? Are you guys enjoying it? Are you guys finding that you're sufficiently Arc 3.0'd? Are you like, what are some things that that you're enjoying about the season? What are maybe some things that you wish they'd improve?
King's Fall is great.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's start there. How is everybody enjoying like the return of King's Fall?
It's great to have the weapons back from the nostalgia there. Same with sort of Volg last year, wasn't it? But this year we have the added benefit of getting the red weapons, and that drives some incentive of people replaying it over and over, not only just to get the exotic bat to get the red weapons, and then do their perfect enhanced weapon rolls. So there's that incentive there for people to play it every single week, and if the weapon's good enough, they'll keep going for that. So that's generally what I like. I sort of go for those sort of straight away, and I'll be sat doing any activities with my red borders, whether to just get the neutral element or to complete the frame, so I can start leveling up the weapon myself. So yeah, that's, I think, since the start of Witch Queen, red weapons and just grinding has been sort of my go-to sort of just pastime. So to have that for those old weapons is good, to build on what CDub said.
Yeah, just the raid itself for me is just one of the best raids ever made by Bungie, and I'm really happy to have it back so I can play it, because I don't play Destiny for anything else but the actual content that's in it anymore. Like, the meta is always going to be very set when it comes to PVE, as it seems like it's very little diversity with meta and PVE. At least the meta. You can always use a bunch of different things, but as the meta, it's always going to be linear. Like, not linears, but it's going to be just one thing. And I don't feel like grinding weapons a lot of the time, so I just play for what's content we have in the game. And King's Fall being back has just made me play this game more this season than I have in the last 2 years, I think, because of how much I love that raid. But that's what this season gave me. Yeah.
Were you big on the raid back in like D1? Did you loved
Oh yeah,
it?
but I was toxic.
Yeah, you
so it's a lot better now that I've done it so much more already now than the entirety of D1, because I just got so frustrated back in the day, and I couldn't. I would spend 6 hours switching out fire team member after fire team member after fire team member. Yeah. Because of how I was back then. I didn't teach anybody back then. If you didn't know what you're doing, you were wasting my time. Not realizing that I'm wasting my own time getting new people in over and over and over again. Yeah. Like, that's
the hubris of youth.
Yeah.
and with that mentality, it's kind of like if you had just, made friends with peeps and then trained them up, you basically, is groom the right word? Groom sort of and shape. Shape your friends. Yeah. And you team build,
shape your fire team
and all that to think alike. So you ultimately it would have taken a lot of time to begin with, but in the long run, you would have ended up saving time. So
yeah, and I would have probably formed better relationships to have more fire team members to play with. Yeah. Instead of having to go to LFG, because, but that wasn't me. I was young, obviously. How long ago that was?
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
20 years ago? Was that 20 years ago?
Hopefully not yet.
Right.
It is almost 10 years of Destiny, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 8 years. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Wow.
There's going back to your comment on like the PVE meta and like how that doesn't really change. I think we're seeing a lot of I've really enjoyed the 3.0 abilities that they've injected back into the game.
Sure.
I feel like that has helped at least kind of liven up the puzzle that we have each time that we go into an activity.
Yeah, if you're not a warlock, but yeah, sure, yeah. Because they hate warlocks for some damn reason when it comes to 3.0 subclasses.
Look, you get to stay alive all the time in Void 3.0 with a warlock. But the it's to the point now where I feel like I am using. It doesn't really matter what weapon I'm using as long as I'm using like the same archetype to complete like the champion puzzle of it all. Because that at least in in-game activities, it feels like that is where you start running into roadblocks. It's not so much the mechanics itself. It's when you run into champs and the like. Anybody else feeling the same way?
Well, me just doing raids, not many champions. Mm-hmm. So,
right.
I mean, if you're doing master, you have like one champion per encounter. So it doesn't change much. There's not really much barriers like when it comes to champions. Mm-hmm. But in GMs, I guess that is an issue. Like
I know in GMs it definitely comes up more often, especially like this season when you have Lightblade, and like it is a very solid strike, but it can be punishing with the amount of like anti-barriers that you have in there. And the light bearers I think pose the largest threat, but you really don't have. You just kind of have to wait them out and dwindle them down.
I think light bearers is something that needs to be added to the game in all areas. I think light bearers should be in raids. Light bearers should be just walking around in social spaces, or not social spaces, but like planets or whatever. I think we need more of the light enemies outside of just light blade or whatever couple strikes that they're in. I think those pose real threats. Champions, I feel like champions are easy. That might be just.
I don't mind champions either.
Yeah, champions, I think, are very
I know some
easy.
people hate it.
Yeah.
Like
I would say champions are easier only because you are able to stop their activity.
Exactly.
I would say they're just as big of a threat. However, as long as you bring the right tools, you get 5 seconds of just free, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas I agree that I wonder if Light Horde or like the Light Blade guys, I wonder if they are the future of Destiny in-game.
I hope so.
Because I wonder if this, I hope so as well. But I know that they have heard the, what was the best word? The exhaustion of champions. And sooner or later that champions have to either be evolved on or phased out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if they keep releasing content with champions in them, sooner or later people will get exhausted, and it's obvious all of us are exhausted with champions, especially with the artifact not being consistent or just making metas or just champion requirements that sometimes just people don't want to play with. I am curious if they ever would go back to making what they wanted to originally, which was a champion slot, for example, like anti-barrier kinetic or something like that. So all you need, if nothing else, is just on that slot you can take care of the champion and you can run whatever you want to in that slot instead of cycling out sometimes a champion mod on a set of GMs that people don't like, or master or whatever. But I really hope that they, like C-Dub said, I hope they move away from champions, because champions are sometimes free, but also it's very limiting in what makes Destiny unique, which is their weapon diversity. Especially because of everyone likes to use different weapons. And I've heard multiple times that if you enjoy using certain weapons, no matter whether or not they're meta or not, you should be able to engage for the most part in all sorts of content and not have to be locked to using something because that's what the meta is, or that's what the artifact is forcing you to use.
Yeah. That's why people hated the Prestige Raid layers.
That's what people hate. Well, that's because it was locking you out of what you wanted to use. It was also forcing you to engage in weapon archetypes that either you did not prefer, or, let's be honest, some content should not have you running a sidearm in it. Just because
you're right.
I liked it. I liked it because it was like the random rolls, but I know exactly why that's not popular. Of course, I know why people didn't like that.
Now, the difference in being forced and spicing it up is you have player choice.
Yeah.
If the player chooses to do it, then it's fine. But if the game's forcing you to do it, then most of the player base is not going to like that, which is understandable. Because like you, sometimes I will just put on a bunch of stuff that I know isn't optimal, but hey, I just want to switch it up. I just want to just try something new. Because otherwise, if I don't try something new, I will get bored with the game very quickly.
Exactly.
And that keeps it very fresh for me. Like, oh, this was fun. I didn't know I would like this as much. The difference is I ain't making that choice, and the game is not making that choice for me, nor locking me out and forcing me to like, okay, I don't really like this. Let me swap it. Oh, I can't, because I have to make sure I have this for this champion and all that stuff. And it's very unfortunate. But I agree that, champions kind of need to,
Go away.
not be the focus. Well, I don't think they need to go away, but there definitely needs to be more enemies that require you to
refocus the.
Just refocus on the champions, or not the champion, but refocus on the enemies. Have them be more threatening, but not be tied to just stun them real quickly and then just pop a bunch of free damage.
So,
I think champions are fine in small spaces; they're unique, but I do hope that they create more enemies like the light blade guys, and I'm very hopeful for the lightfall trimmers or like whatever they're
tormentors.
called.
So,
tormentors.
They've already
Yeah,
said in those sort of releases we've already seen that we'll see those guys in the open world, and they will, to quote you, Dan, give you tremors because they'll they said they will be unforgiving, and when you do meet them, whether they'll be in the story.
And I hope so.
So, I think definitely a varied. We had the Light Bearers for Witch Queen. We'll have the Tormentors for this. It's a literal invasion of Neo Muna. So, I'm sure we may just get that out of that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So, talking back to Dan's sort of thing about GMs, I think, we bring up Lightblade. That's obviously the real sort of scary point for a lot of people. GMs in general are just sort of can be unforgiving. It doesn't matter if you take your eyes off the screen for a second, you turn around to say hello to wife, or you read a message in chat, you wipe, and then you're back to orbit. You can play the easiest one, Saber, this season, or quote unquote easiest one, and you're done. It's as we said before, it's all about your sort of positioning and your loadout and the gear you take and how well equipped you are, and prioritizing targets. And the hardest one can be the easiest one to the sort of right team and the most sort of well equipped team. It just so happens that, as we were talking about, Lightblade does have the most GMs because the amount it spawns. How many champs in the final room?
There's like so many.
So I want to say there's 10.
I think it's 18, isn't it? In Glassway. So Glassway's got.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about in the boss room.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I think there's about 6 or 8 in the boss room if you don't include the light bearers.
There's 8 anti-barrier. There's 8 barrier champions, and there's 2 light bearers that spawn in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, it's just GM's just unforgiving in general. Can you imagine having those same sort of things in a raid, doing a master, and you wipe and you kick back to orbit, you got to start all over again? Would never happen. So,
the thing with GMs is
I've been hated on that. I would love to see that. But.
It, just reinforces the idea: don't bloody die. So,
well, it's curious. 'Cause I was going to ask the question to everyone as far as GMs go, and as far as the foundation of PVE, especially now with 3 back-to-back seasons of Light 3.0 updates, which I do feel that was a much better choice than giving us the new subclass first, because at least with Lightfall it will have, 6 fresh subclasses or 5 fresh subclasses instead of 2, which is what Stasis and the new one. And I think it's a lot better for them to have taken some time, move that back,
to give everything the same treatment.
I agree.
With the aspects and the fragments and all that. Give
so
each other,
everything's a lot fresher
grenades.
because you can have more choices. Yeah. However, I wonder, is anyone else felt a power creep that we've never felt before, as far as everything feels, I don't want to say easy, but because of how much we've evolved as players, from our mindset, from our experience, from our subclasses, from our weapons, from our skills, that even when it comes to GMs at times, there's literally nothing that feels threatening to us as a player. I'm not saying when we're not just memeing around, joking around, and all that stuff. Just when when push comes to shove, everything in the game needs if I want to use, I guess, Lightblade as a measuring stick. Is it safe or fair to say that everything needs to be pushed up to that level because of how strong we've gotten? I don't know if anyone else feels that, as far as because of Light 3.0 and because of just how strong we've gotten, just everything feels a lot easier and a lot just free.
So,
I don't know the word. Because a lot of people look at Vault of Glass and Kingsfall and how nostalgic they are. And even though I love those raids, it is very obvious, especially with Kingsfall, that I remember doing multiple Kingsfalls and them taking 3-4 hours. And you can knock out a Kingsfall with new people in an hour and a half just because of how strong we are and just how experienced we are. Like even Kingsfall, right, that used to be very difficult, doesn't seem as difficult to the average player now.
Yeah, we got rally banners now. We got revive tokens. Like
we got mantling.
Yeah, mantling, res tokens. Back in the day, you had
funny sorting, thunder crashing,
the jumping puzzle.
You had like hero moments back then.
So I wonder if anyone else feels if we do remember, like Kingsfall back in the day, at least normal, you could revive all you wanted to.
Yeah,
there was
only
hard
mode that
had
it
where if you die, you were
That's
out.
all. Yeah,
but everyone remembers having to do multiple cycles of, say War Priest or Golgoroth or whatever. Granted, if you didn't have Black Spindle, a lot of that was a lot more difficult. But like you said, you can mantle now. But like I just remember like the same thing happened with Vault of Glass last year for me. A lot of people that only played D2 were like, y'all thought this was hard? Y'all thought this was like, a really good raid?
And man. You try not being able to climb on stuff.
Yeah. So like it's just interesting seeing the change of the community and the evolving just knowledge of the community. The average player can knock out Kingsfall in a lot faster time than the average player of D1. Granted, D1 was a totally different monster, totally different. I will give it that. But it's just interesting seeing like a lot of people that only play D2 play these newer raids and be like, oh, this is easy. This is simple.
You weren't there, man. You didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So like it's just interesting. I'm just curious if anyone has seen a very similar thing that I have or even feels differently.
Of course.
I just wonder if I'm just out there by myself with that.
I believe CdoubleG was going to hop on the power creep question back when it was first introduced.
Well, I don't even want to talk about how strong we are right now because Dan said something that I've been saying for years, and that's how experienced the players are and how much better the players are now than we were before. Because I've been saying this for like 2 years. Because back when Eater of Worlds, when I two-manned it, everybody thought I was like a god, right? And then like a few months later, it became a meme to two-man that dude. Like seriously. Yeah. And now I'm seeing people all over the community who kept saying, I'll never be able to solo flawless a dungeon or solo flawlessing dungeons back to back to back to back. Or they're going into GMs and soloing GMs. The same people who were scared to jump in a raid with me when I was going to teach them. They were scared to be taught a raid, and now they're soloing dungeons and GMs. And it's just like, we're getting so much better at this game, and Bungie's not accommodating for how good their community has gotten at their game. And they're still treating us like we just picked this up yesterday. And that has nothing to do with how strong they have made us with 100 resilience or with the 4.0 builds. So I don't know what to do about that, but it's definitely something that I feel like needs to be talked about because the players in this game have gotten so much better at this game because of how repetitive it's gotten and how, we get the same thing all the time with mechanics and activities.
To play devil's advocate, and it's, I'm, just looking at it from a different point of view, someone else's point of view, we're obviously the ones that more on socials and, you know, speak about what things and people see what we're talking about. There's obviously people that don't bother with that don't sort of speak up and just play the game and get on, and then can't get through these activities. And these activities that we are saying that are so easy are still so very hard for them for there's a bunch of variables in play. And we've spoken about those tonight, whether, you know, it'd be on, you know, not being able to find the sort of right team, or, you know, being able to commit and play for those amount of hours. I find myself a lot of the time I don't ever refer to it as like a carry, but, you know, providing an extra sort of pull for the guide, with guiding and not sort of more hand holding, but, you know, definitely explaining things a lot more because they haven't committed and they don't have the sort of time to commit to the game. So is it just because we don't see them speaking up, does it mean that there's less of them, or is there more of them that are struggling with with all this, and because we are on it all the time, it's just easier for us? It's just me looking at it
I would
another
agree.
side, another way.
No, I would agree 100% that there are more people who are not on the side of the line, if you will, in regards to their experience and their quote unquote skill level. I would never disagree with that. I 100% agree, because it would be speaking from a privileged standpoint of thinking that everyone is as in tune with the game as we are. We've already talked about how a lot of people, you know, think if it's not in the game, it's not available. You know, every day people are learning about Discord and LFG and all this stuff, and they think, you know, guided games was the only way they can matchmake or what have you, until they like go out of their way to look up stuff like that. So I will agree there that there's a lot of people who are still struggling with this content. I'm not saying that. It's more the sense of, I do think the average player, which I don't know what you can really count as an average player, but someone that's for the most part engaged in Destiny to a somewhat active level, not including just, you know, hopping on and doing their weeklies. I do feel that a lot of them aren't as afraid of engaging in stuff like CDub said as they might have been 4 or 5 years ago. The average person.
Yeah.
The average person, that's all.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like you said, with the two-man eater, I remember watching Slayer Rage, solo Crota, way back in the day. And I remember everyone thinking that was the wildest thing ever. The wildest thing ever, you know. And nowadays, every day, someone's doing not even something super crazy, but just, you know, solo master, Nightfall, solo.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
You know, all this. It's just more common now.
Well, it's
than
the
it
Triumph
was
too.
Later too. And then
That's
Bungie started adding triumphs and stuff to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And we see that, like, I mean, that's an incentive. You get a cosmetic thing for that in most regards. Is like, and so I think that's in part outside of personal, outside of maybe personal challenge, is an incentive to go and do those things. And that's an argument for something that we can talk about later about like in-game activity and reward. But going back to like the power creep of it all, I do think that we are more powerful than we've ever been.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like the systems that we currently have where we're having to like climb light level each time in order to take on these enemies, for the most part, when we meet or beat the level, or even are like 15 under, you can adequately take care of most things in the game.
Yeah.
I feel like they have a really good thing built in with contest and the legendary story campaign that they did last year. I feel like that was kind of like the perfect This could be nostalgia. This could be all sorts of things. But going through that Witch Queen campaign on Legendary with me and like a buddy, that was the most challenged I'd felt in Destiny in a while. And that includes GMs previous to that. Now, since then, yes, I think the 3.0 system has like empowered us and given us abilities that have made it so that we can tank a little bit more. But the resilience buff also helps there.
Oh yeah.
And so, but I'm almost fully prepared for a big old smack with Lightfall. Something tells me
with like a big challenge, like, or
either challenge or systemic, because let me posit something. What if the Guardian rank system isn't only a social based system and it's more about it is a system that allows you to unlock certain activities rather than a power system overall? Instead of being 1600,
I thought that's what it was.
That's what I would assume that it was.
Where you have to do certain prerequisites in order to be a part of or be able to access, say trials or raids or nightfalls.
So rather than being like 1600, you're level 11 and that unlocks everything. Because right now with the powers that we have, it doesn't really lock us out of much. The seasonal, we climb the 10, the 20 every season.
Every season, 200 for an expansion. Yeah.
And it's like we hit that, but I don't know if that's a system that sticks around.
Going for?
I do think sooner or later it's gonna be gone. Though. I agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they listen and they're aware of what people are saying. You have to be really daft to think otherwise. It may not look like it at sort of times what people are saying, but they know what we're saying. So maybe they're just putting pieces into play to be able to make the change, because it's not just going to be an easy overnight
flip the switch.
Guys, this is what's happening next season. Everything's fucking changing. No. It's going to be.
I was kind of thinking of it the opposite way.
Yeah.
That they are mounting to that.
No. I have been wondering, which I think we all have, that with all the changes, with all the buffs, I was thinking myself that they were going to give a massive buff to compensate for the foundation of the game now. Just make everything, I don't want to say more difficult, but because all 4 subclasses can clear out a room by themselves, just make it to where everything doesn't die as quickly to compensate for, I guess, all the light updates and stasis and whatever the new subclass strand is. Because I don't know if anyone feels that they can take their subclass to the full potential without just waiting around.
What?
And if you can, once you have 5 other people or even 2 other people, that's So maybe that's what I've been thinking. Maybe they do all this stuff and they be like, okay, let's rebalance for 3 or 6 stasis warlocks or something, that can clear out full rooms, or the Heart of Immolite Titans or something. But hey, I like your idea more. It probably seems more feasible for the Guardian rank scene to be the new requisite.
It just seems, I said last week on last week's episode that it feels like there are a lot of systems that are kind of in flux, or like there's some that work better than others currently. I like that they're getting away from planetary materials as a currency and turning that into like a rep based thing, like we've seen on the Throne World and on the Castellum so far this season. I like that they're doing away with that, because it simplifies everything across the board and allows players old and new to, I don't know if interact more with the system or maybe understand the economies more so. But it wouldn't surprise me if we saw with Lightfall, big systemic changes to possibly core playlists alongside all of these things.
Yeah.
What do we have confirmed for next season? The next season's the PvP changes season.
Next season's really nothing besides.
We should get a dungeon too.
We're going to get a dungeon.
We're getting a dungeon.
Dungeon. Whether that be, some people are saying Crota, but we'll see.
People are just.
I think it's
speculating.
a new dungeon. I think it's a brand new dungeon.
Yeah.
Bring the Vex.
Yeah. So there's all that, but it may be they take advantage of sort of not as much sort of going on to start implementing changes going into Lightfall and using this time to get the game prepared for the future in the next few years of Destiny and start seeding their vision. So
the thing is, they need to be I don't know the mindset of every player, right? But a lot of people are just really on like this. Lightfall needs to be a hit, or I'm just done with Destiny. Even I'm like halfway
They've
there.
been saying that.
No, but
every year
I'm on
that comes out.
yeah.
No,
Every
but
year
like,
is make or break. Every game's a Destiny killer.
No, but
whenever they decide to do D3, they're going to say the same thing. This is the make or break one for me. So I mean, I'm not saying I disagree, but it's just how many times they're going to say this is it before.
It just seems a lot louder recently for me. I don't know because
you're in a position to receive and to be heard. Now they definitely does feel a lot louder.
Yeah, and I know I have high hope for Lightfall. But at the same time, if they're going to just keep repeating the same thing, what more can we do? Like they need to change something in a big way. I don't know what it is. It could be anything, but something has to change in a big way.
That's the like, beauty thing, isn't it? Is we can say this isn't working, but what's our solution? What would we change? And you see these breakdowns and sort of of on YouTube and stuff of like this is what you should do instead of this and all that, and people actually go into like full depth. But we it's easy for us to say this isn't working, this sucks, change it. What are we going to change it to? What's the alternative? So
I feel like there's a few things, especially like artifact power. I think that's a very easy solution and a very easy thing to just get rid of forever, because screw artifact power and doing bounties constantly to try to get that artifact power up to get to plus 15 every season to go into a GM when you literally have a contest mode or legendary mode capabilities. So like, it doesn't make sense.
Think of it almost from a smart business sort of way, I guess, and keeping that there. People are going to get bored of it. They can't keep up with it forever, but it brings players back at the end of the season to play and to grind and to get those bounties in, and this is the way it sort of worked, and the game stays consistent, and the player base stays up, and there's people on playing their game. So they'll do that, and then obviously you'll then start a brand new season. People will then go in, dump it all, play the new content, and then after a few weeks it kind of falls off, and they'll go up, switch games up or whatever, or just sort of give it up. But it's it is all these things in a way, whether it's intentional or not, are to, and you'd be stupid enough not to do it, but to keep people coming back. That's why they time gate different quests every week, because if you just let it all go straight away, then those people are gone for the rest of the season. And it's I agree with you 100%. I see what you're saying, but
they're using their business model at the.
But you look at it like if they didn't do that, then we'd be complaining that there's nothing to do, and there's
we already complain.
I know, but we'd be complaining even more.
There's definitely a problem, I agree, but like I've seen a lot of conversations around stuff like the artifact leveling, and a lot of other stuff in the game as far as drip feed content. And what I like to make people remember, which I know everyone doesn't remember, but a lot of what Bungie has done over the past, let's say since Shadowkeep, a lot of things that they have done and changed have been in response to what the community asked previously. Back in the day, everyone remembers the 7-month Taken King drought.
Yeah.
Where everything was dropped in us and we were flooded with content for, I think about 6 weeks straight.
And that's overwhelming.
And then
right? For
nothing happened till April with the April update. Everyone remembers the Forsaken era of you had to play constantly to grind and get all these levels. It was like from 385 to 600. And I remember multiple people saying, I can't keep up with this. I don't want to log in and do all this stuff 24/7 to keep up. I don't want to be forced to play all this stuff constantly to stay with the content. And their response was the artifact. They wanted to keep things fresh. I'm tired of Midnight Coup, EP Shoddy, Sleeper, or or Whisper. I want fresh stuff. I want different stuff every couple of months. The response to that was the artifact and all that kind of stuff. They've said multiple times, the community has, I want this to be different. I'm tired of this. And Bungie has always changed it. Granted, it's been in their dev cycle over time, but they've always responded to the community, and the community has always negatively responded in response and wanted what they had back.
Look, we can still have the artifact and to get the artifact mods, and you can still level up your artifact to unlock those mods. That's fine. The issue
I'd rather
is
artifact gone.
Oh, well, but if that's their response, if that's their response to that, then that's still fine. The artifact isn't the issue. Artifact power leveling is the issue. And the fact that you can
you got to also remember they got to make it mean something, which I agree they should just get rid of it. 100% they should.
I mean, I think they should get rid of it too.
They should get rid of it.
And just have seasonal mods that you can get from like Ada or something. But like, but the over leveling is the issue. But that was in response
to, that was definitely in response to people who, I remember, like I'm sure everyone else remembers when the Shadowkeep raid was about to come out, and a lot of big streamers at the time complained that the requirements for bounties and requirements for the artifact leveling and all that made it unfair for people to not play the game and still be at the same starting line for Garden Salvation. And a lot of people were upset in that response because they were like, this is going to help me not have to take off work all week. This is going to make me whatever and still be able to play this game. Otherwise, I would just drop it. Right. It's unfortunate because I agree that they should get rid of it, but that's also because we play way more often. And sadly, like others have said, for their bottom line, from a business perspective, it makes more sense to keep that there. The problem is finding a way to make it to where it doesn't matter as much, but also it makes it matter enough. I think that's the issue, because I don't think they'll ever get rid of the artifact system. But I do think they're trying to figure out ways, maybe with the Guardian ranks, maybe with other things, to make it not the way. Just like how for a long time they were making it to where they were trying to make and figure out ways to make it to where bounties was not the way. And I don't know if they'll ever do it. Maybe with Lightfall they'll do it. It's just unfortunate because for those of us here that play more often and we don't need the artifact system, and the artifact system is seen as a negative to us, there's a lot of people, I would say more, that look at it as a positive. Okay, if I can't play this week because I got 70 hours of work, I can just do some bounty farming when I can. And
go defend the moon for a while.
And and then still engage in content. It's tough. It's tough because I've heard this conversation and this argument a whole lot, and I'm on the same side as CDub. But I do think there's way more people on the opposite side of us that have very valid reasons why they think it should stick around. But the tough part is finding a way to not make it the way. It shouldn't be the way, because I can't outfight I can't outplay the Moon Man, you know? I can't,
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if you don't have the time to do the other content in the game, how do you have time to like level up to plus 15 on the artifact? That's not like something to sneeze at. That's a lot of grinding.
There's a lot of work. And
it's not
like,
as much as you think, though, because like for those of us that play a lot, our leveling does not outweigh bounties. They just don't. You can go do the Cosmodrome for an hour and a half and do the equivalent of 3 hours, 4 hours of raids, and that's a problem.
You're right.
There's no
true.
way, you know.
Absolutely.
So like that's the problem. They could change the way XP is gained, where like completing activities like Grandmasters and raids, making that be way more worth it. As long as it's a full clear, because otherwise everyone's just going to kill Oryx 24/7 and then So if they can figure out that, I think that's the simplest thing. But I do think the artifact, and I've gone back and forth with this for years, because there was at one point I was like a hardcore, if you're out there doing the moon, you know, I don't want to see, you know, all this stuff. But after a while, I'm like, I know you don't got 40 hours like I do to play this game every week. I get it. And your moon minting is not affecting my enjoyment of the game. But I do hate that, you know, master content and GMs are having this whole, like, you got to do the moon.
you feel
bounties.
the need to do that.
You feel the need to do it or play a whole lot.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to ever push the game. I'm past the point of pushing the game to appease me. And instead just accepting for what they can, accepting hopefully that they can change stuff, and understanding, I guess, for myself, these things are in place and helps people that have lives outside of Destiny, that have work, that have family, that have whatever. Because at the end of the day, it's better for them to play the game than not play the game at all. But I'm 100% with you, CW. Those Moon Men, I swear.
I don't have a problem with the Moon Man. There just shouldn't be a requirement to have them. Like
I 100% do. I 100%
you got I got a problem with the AFKers. Like that's in there with those are the ones.
AFKers,
Isn't that the Moon Men?
The Moon Men are the AFKs. They sit there in that little area just tossing Ash and Wake 24 times, and I'm sitting here doing a dungeon and a raid, and they got 3x the amount of XP I got in that time.
So,
you know?
Something about the change of the economy of the planetary mats and like how much they said heroic and regular public events would be rewarding outside of those things, or like what those numbers were that they gave. Something tells me that they're about to rebalance XP as well with that change.
Yeah, I think so.
Look further.
Yeah.
Look further towards the upcoming expansion.
I think we're seeing they were quiet for 4 weeks. It was like pretty light on TWABs. Like, and I know Hippie said something during that was like, that means that exciting things are happening and people's heads are down. they're doing work. It's when we come out and say big things that like we have things to say, or like, of course they'll have things to say, but that's when they're kind of letting us peek in a little bit. So it wouldn't surprise me with development cycles the way that they are. They've probably already been working on systems to like reinvigorate everything. Oh yeah. And we're just going to see that in Lightfall. I had somebody come in and chat yesterday that was like, they were talking about the Festival of the Lost, and they were like, "Is this a prank on us, man?" And like they came in kind of hot, and I was like, I don't think so. I think that this was just built, and they're using the same system as they did last year, and something broke, and that's where we are now. And then they came back with like the reply of like, "Yeah, man, I think they're just all heads on for Lightfall." And I was like, I think that is probably,
which makes me very scared for next season, because next season gonna be dry as hell.
Maybe
I think it's gonna be 100% dry. I mean, you're probably gonna get the Christmas thing. You're gonna get the deals, the dungeon and the master. And I think that's going to be like you said, the chill season, because you got to also remember, generally, I don't know how it works anymore, but at least back in the day when the expansions came out in September, They had a 1 month period in January where they just didn't talk to the community, and this is where a lot of people took their breaks.
Oh, they did that again. They did that. They did that before Witch Queen too.
Yeah, so they still got to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would assume they're going to do it in January again. So it's going to be a pretty dry, and then the holidays, everyone's going to be dealing with, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all that stuff. I agree. It's going to be a dry season, and, they're not going to say a lot. They got their head down, all eyes on Lightfall.
The new season will launch on the 6th of December.
Yeah.
So
December 6th.
December 6th. Yeah. So
I'm going to show you guys
7
this.
weeks.
Yeah. I'm going to show you guys this because this is something that I thought was pretty clever of me for planning for this show specifically. But I broke down the weeks.
Dan, you're like on OBS and you can like bring slides up digitally. Yeah.
Oh, I could do that, or I could just write it down so I can eat it later. But yeah, I mean, like we've entered into like a part of the seasonal model, and maybe that's the conversation that we have next. We've entered into the part of the seasonal model where we kind of know when things come in. Like I have written right here, week 10 seasonal event conversation, which is usually after like by week 7, the PvP stuff is generally, we've seen everything new out of like Iron Banner or Trials of Osiris, any like Crucible Labs things. We generally see them by then. Week 8 is generally when the final story mission hits, and week 9, I'm like, we're here talking about, the state of PVE for this season. And so it feels kind of like a rote thing. And I don't know if I necessarily feel comfort in that, or if it's just like, I as an atypical player just see the pattern in this and keep rolling with it. But how is everybody feeling about the season so far? I know story-wise it's pretty great. I enjoyed the season the story so far this season with Nezarac's resurrection and everything. But how are we liking how we progress loot systems? How are we enjoying just the other playlists that we had invited in with Expedition and Catch Crash?
I could do without them.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's just not my favorite thing to do. I would rather be raiding. I feel like I have to do other stuff because I want the seals. So I'm like, I'm doing it, but it's not my favorite. I liked last season better. I like the Callus stuff.
Was it because of like the story, or was it because of like the reward on the back end and how
maybe
you
the story?
receive things?
The story for sure. The weapons too. There were some of them that I really wanted, and so more likely to grind that if I'm after something.
Did you get them all
But
done?
this one is just kind of no, no, I didn't.
That's tough, because if you don't get to that, and then you get to the next season where there's now a focus on that seasonal event, the previous one's kind of pushed aside, and you now have to focus on these new ones, which everyone's like going crazy. You're like, so my time's already like taken up from everything. Do I go back and do this old stuff and like try and catch up, but then I completely miss out on this new stuff, or do I, I literally just got my last like 2 weapons from that because I couldn't get them last season. Right? It was.
Damn.
I love me some match-made 6-man PVE activities. I do. Not having the red borders to purchase in the at the vendor and the helm this season was a little bit tough and a little bit demotivating. And then they added it 2 weeks ago. Just
that was bugged. I think that they said that was bugged.
Right. There wasn't even
right?
there wasn't a description on anything in in or any upgrades to say that you got a deep sight with the first thing that you got. You got a deep sight for completing your first catch crash of the week, but there was nothing to say that it was actually there for that. So, and people have been asking sort of all season. There wasn't any sort of confirmation of whether it was happening. Not that I saw, at least, not that anyone I know saw, but you know, it's. If you do miss the previous season, then it's very unlikely that you're going to go back and do the previous season content. So that's where I'm glad that they don't get rid of the seasonal content like they did. I think it was the year following Shadowkeep. Because they would vault that seasonal content, wouldn't they? After each season, and then I believe it was DSC that they left it open for the year. Up until the next expansion, and then they would vault it, and then you'd basically lose 4 seasons of activities, and then you just get one for that first expansion season, and then you'd have to kind of like build that back up again, and that's, you know, what happened to Witch Queen, but that's kind of offset by the brand new activities and everything you have because of that expansion. So it's kind of.
I wish it kept the focus though.
Yeah,
you know. Because I, like y'all said, I didn't finish on my red board. It's just because, you know, didn't. I think I need, like, one off stringer. But, like, I remember beginning of this season trying to, like, oh, let me just try to go get my red border. And going back to the head or whatever, the crown. Crown.
Yeah.
And it was way more difficult now to progress it than last season, which is... If you're going to make it more difficult for someone coming back to the game, not me, but just coming back and catching up on these seasonal events or whatever, shouldn't make it more difficult for them, you know, should at least give them the same experience or just shelve it, you know? At least that's how I feel.
What about making it easier? I said this the other day, maybe...
Or
like
easier to catch
halving
up.
the costs of all those materials.
Previous seasons.
It's still 27 bloody opulent Umbral energy for
I
weapons
didn't buy one.
to focus.
I didn't have any.
Right? So, and you've got to do that from, say, 0 opulent energy. You've got to go run containment, and I think you've got to run it 3 times through to the boss, get the drops, and then you've then got enough to go and do that. And that's an hour sort of gone. It's not an easy thing, especially when there's no one playing that content. So you go into a patrol zone, whether it be a match-made activity or just, you know, RNG, that there's going to be other players there. There's no one playing that content for you to go in and for it to be easier than it was last season. So people are like, missing out. And
I have been making a conscious effort to go through and do a castle. Well, I've said this several times now, but I go through and I do a Castlum, a Wellspring, a Catch Crash, and a Dares of Eternity. I used to do it every day there for a while, and now it's like it might be every other day. But I'm going back through and purposely focusing to go and do those activities so I can get those older, like the red borders from the crown, each week. But it is something that I am focusing on doing. It is not, it feels still having to get 5 of them when the season has turned over is just kind of like, come on, man. Like, just give me, like, give me something. I'm putting in the work here. I'm doing the thing. It does feel like it needs to be a little bit more rewarding on the juice side of that. How are we feeling about the crafting system as a whole? Are we enjoying it? Is it something that that you feel adds to the experience of Destiny 2 in its current state? How would you change it if you're not enjoying it at this point?
It gives you something else to focus on and do and aim for. Like, there's still a lot of people that, you know, I know that just turn around and just like, I don't care. I'm not even going to entertain it and everything. And, you know, power to them. Bloody, you know, don't. I see you.
Yeah, I feel like crafting was added for the completionists in the game, and not the people that actually want good weapons.
Freaking cuff me because I'm guilty. I am a completionist. I'm, that hitting the mark and getting the completion just sends that spark in my brain that gives me joy for 3 seconds, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing with my life? But like it gives you something else to aim for in the game. Whether it's done right or wrong, that's up to everyone's individual opinion. I'm not too bothered by it. I respect other people that have feelings about it, and everyone's entitled to that. So for me, it's exactly that. Just something else to do.
I feel like that's the majority's people's outlook on it. It's something to do. I know a lot of people who chase red borders. I feel like I'm a very big minority of people who just don't care about red borders at all. Because you want enhanced perks, but what are these enhanced perks doing? Nothing. These enhanced perks do absolutely nothing for your gameplay, except for one perk, the lasting impression enhanced, that helps you Izzy swap. And like that's the only thing I ever crafted. And a forbearance, because that gun is ridiculously nuts. But other than that,
you didn't craft a type in? No.
My quest is broken as hell. Really my quest is broken. I can't even get the free type in. So
you keep talking shit about him.
Yeah, probably. But my Enigma quest is broken, and it broke the type in quest. So I don't have a crafted type in, but it's fine because I use my cataclysmic anyway. So screw type in.
Is it crafted?
No, because I got the god roll without crafting it, so I'm like, I don't gotta go for cataclysmic.
At least go for an adept
He's a
one.
man
At least
of
go for an
principle.
adept one.
It is adept.
Oh, there you go.
It is
Okay,
adept.
you should have said
Yeah. But yeah, I got the adept 4 times with bait and switch. So I was like, I don't gotta craft this thing now. I just go for forbearance.
Put that adept big ones on. Exactly right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Some packs are good, some packs are bad. There's firing line, enhanced firing line. It increases the radius that you connect to other people.
But you're standing in a well for the most part. How far away are you going to be from people? It's pointless.
There's plenty. I'm not always staying in a well. Not always.
If you're playing with other people and you're focusing on damage, which is what firing line is,
but it's only 2 other
you're going to be
people.
standing in a well.
It only stacks up to 2 other people. So
you're still going to be with those people in a well.
Yeah.
I think the enhanced triple tap's more useful, just because of the extra, I think, second between shots to keep triple tap low.
Yeah.
Things like that.
That could be useful, the lasting impression.
Enhanced, lasting, the enhanced, 4 times the charm. Just things that increase the window between is probably worth it.
But it literally
I would
comes down
craft
to
it for that.
Yeah.
But it comes down to milliseconds. But it can be, it's also very, very, very specific times where it can be the difference between a kill or not a kill, or having to reload and not having to reload. So stuff like that, it can matter. But then again, that only really comes down to being super needed in a day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, or if you're helping people, sometimes the enhanced perks the enhanced triple tap in 4 times has made the difference in, turning a 3-phase into a 2-phase when I'm helping people that don't have the best perks. But that's probably not where Bungie was like, we're making this for that one scenario. They're not making it for that. But there are times where I do think it's worth it for craftables. My only issue with crafting is the adept kind of counteracting that, If I've said it multiple times, if the adept weapons were either craftable or could get the enhanced perks, that would help. But I also understand why craftables enhanced perks aren't as strong, because we all remember when they first came out, what was it? Enhanced 1-2 punch was busted.
Oh yeah.
Enhanced pulse monitor was busted, and on the one side they should be busted. But I could understand as a developer this being super unintentional. So it's a really interesting, I guess, balancing act that they're trying to figure out, because like you said, the enhanced perks are okay, but they're not needed. But there are people like myself that wish going through the process of getting the red borders and crafting them and getting the enhanced perks and putting all these materials into them benefited somewhat dramatically
or at least noticeably
outside of, you know, the few times I mentioned. It's kind of worth it. I don't need it to be busted, but I wish it was. If I'm gonna toss a bunch of materials in, I wish it was worth it.
I'm in materials.
Do you see participation in like Master Kingsfall? Do you see people like shying away from it to instead focus on getting red border weapons, or or in your communities, do you still see the same kind of hunger for those weapons
for
in Master
weapons?
Yeah,
they don't really care about the weapons so much.
Outside of completionists, no.
They just want to get the triumph, and that's it. And then people will buy the Herald versions to try to get red borders, but
there's no trying.
Just the activity itself, there's no point of doing Master Kingsfall for anybody.
There's no trying about it. Last night I got 2 Harrowed sniper rifles in a row, switched over to the hand cannon, 2 red hand cannons in a row. So 4, one after another.
What the
I'm never getting any good drops ever again in my life. I've used it up. Right, I'm done now. Right, but those were the last 2 each for both my sniper rifle and hand cannon. So like,
I get like 1 red border every 250 spoils, bro. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely think that, like we all said, only people that are engaging with Master is either for a seal completion or for collections completions. It's weird because I remember when Vault of Glass Master came out, it feels like there were more people engaging in Master Vault of Glass for the weapons and the seal and all that other stuff. Yeah. But it seems since VOW and Kingsfall, everyone's just doing it just to completionists or to get just an extra chance at a weapon that they want. But they don't really care about. If they could get it from normal or just craft it, but like you don't see anyone really pushing for like time lost Fatebringer or time lost Hedsons. You know, it's crafting is good, but it does need some sort of like retweaking or something. It seems that the crafting system and the adept teams didn't, you know, cross their I's and dot their T or whatever. They didn't cross reference stuff together, it seems. So I hope they do that.
To touch on your thing real quick with Vogue, the main difference with Vogue's adept weapons is that they were tied to encounter. So you can farm whichever one you wanted.
That too.
So with it being random, there's less incentive to go in there and try to get something random than it is to focus what you actually want.
That's true.
Wasn't Vogue also like one of the only sources of like focused gear as well? Like
outside of at the time, it was only Vault of Glass Master and Pit of Heresy.
And Pit of Heresy,
focus. Armor, but even then, Vault of Glass was more targeted because you could go in a week and just get strength. Versus
depending on what it was.
At the time, it was like just double 20s.
Heard.
Yeah. For the, you know, to refocus onto the crafted weapons. Not adding the adept mods to it, but adding, if you paid a bunch more glimmer or a bunch more materials to add secondary perks, would that make it worth it for you a bit more to, you know?
I've said it has to be enhanced.
So yeah, you can add two enhanced perks, one under the other, in both slots.
Yeah,
so,
I've said in order to make it somewhat usable, at least for me, I would have to be able to do adept weapons, and I would have to, unfortunately, it'd probably have to be a new consumable or currency, but I should be able to engage in the master content as much as I want to, earn adept weapons or whatever, and be able to turn those into a consumable or something, whatever system works for them, turn a bunch of materials or other weapons or whatever into an adept weapon that has the enhanced perks. That, at least for me, this is just for me, that would keep me playing the content and searching for stuff, but also target what I want. I want to be able to, if I can't craft an adept weapon, cool, but let me craft a normal one, use it a whole lot, and then be able to turn that one weapon with a consumable into an adept weapon. Maybe, I don't know if it's worth
that
it.
gets rid
but
of
at
master
least
content even more, though, unless you got the
gets rid of
materials
even
from
more,
master content.
But you'd have to it's either make it to where you have to do it in master to get the whatever system works for them. But there should be no way that an adept weapon is worse than a craftable weapon. It should either be better or on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
And if
meter beat.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll work. They could probably add it, and I'd be like, "This is terrible." But I would like to at least not have my adept weapons be worse than a craftable. You know, that's all.
Before we get into audience questions, I want to ask you guys a question of my own. I asked the PvP guys this as well. And so, Sarah, starting with you. If there's one change that you'd like to make to the sandbox to improve the game for the next few seasons, what would it be?
Oh my god.
I'm glad I'm not
Powers
starting.
in your hands. Let's go.
If somebody else is ready, go ahead.
No,
because
this is all yours.
oh my gosh. A sandbox change to improve everyone's life?
To improve the game for the next few seasons.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I don't know, more exotic weapons with intrinsic, like, the perks for the champions, I think. I don't know, something like that. Just more of a variety of those champions, I think. If they're going to keep them, have something like that. Like what you were talking about with just the mod slot, just covering like any weapon in there.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Would they add that to existing exotics, or would that be new exotics with those anti-champion?
It would have to be the old ones too, right? Give those a facelift. Yeah. There's a lot of exotics we use.
Yeah.
But didn't they say they were changing like 20 of them or something like that? Did I read that somewhere?
Next season they said 20
next season.
getting updated. But that's weapons and armor, so
they're already on it.
Right.
Done. What's next?
So when you say improve the game, what do you mean by improve the game? Because what I would do to improve the game might not be.
How would you improve the game? How would you improve the game?
I would nerf the crap out of Well. That's what I would do.
What,
I don't know if that improves.
Warlock,
I don't know
Warlock
if that improves.
Warlock
I'm a Warlock.
Right.
Warlock Wells.
Elemental
Wells.
yes.
Well of Radiance. Yeah, not Elemental Wells. I think Elemental Wells are really good, and I like where they're at. Yeah. But Well of Radiance, I'm a Warlock main, and it's too strong. It's going to be too strong. It's too strong. I don't know if you nerf the fact that it gives you a 25% damage buff, or you nerf how much it heals you, but Well needs to be nerfed. I don't know if that improves the game. It just makes the game more important what I like and what I want from it, but I don't think that improves the game for the player base. I think Well of Radiance is really good for like everyody to,
It's the same as the Divinity crit bubble.
And I think
it's the same as the
should provide.
I
think that should provide 0% debuff if you're gonna have a crit that damn big. Like it shouldn't debuff at all. But that's another change that I would make. That would make the game better, but it wouldn't make the game better for anybody else. It'd make the game better for what I want to play it as. So like, I don't think I can think of something that I know would make the game better for the majority of players, especially when one of those things are artifact power, and majority of people here thinks that's good for the average player too. So like, I don't know.
It's a tough one though, because like you said, Well needs to get shafted.
It does. It really does.
But it's like Dan said, it's literally the same conversation as the Divinity one, because one, you're making content around it. Two, the majority of the community benefits from it. And unfortunately, I don't think the damage buff is a problem with Well. It is the ability to heal and still have that player use
weapons,
their normal weapons. There's a reason you don't see a lot of people using Titan Wall. It's 40%.
Yeah,
it's a much higher damage buff. It lasts just as long as Well. You can tank everything as long as you're standing behind it, but you have one person not damaging.
You're right.
That's why no one uses it.
Yep.
So I've made the suggestion for a long time. They'll never do it, but they make it to where well can be a very similar super to Ursa Wall or whatever, where the player has to hold the sword down, and that's it. They have to hold it down, and you get rid of you don't have the 25% buff, but you get the overshield, you get everything. But as long as he's holding the well down, that's it. It's the trade-off of, do you place the well and lose that person's damage, and you get no damage buff, and you get a lot of healing, or does the person just run, say, a healing rift?
Nobody would run well ever again, though. Like, you're just gonna kill it completely at that point. If it don't give the damage buff either, you just might as well run. You might as well run Ursus.
High risk,
There's no point of running well anymore.
Gotta do it. Yep. But then you have the choice of high risk, high reward. Some places it's needed, some places it's not. Well shouldn't be the end game warlock choice everywhere. There are some places it can be used. Some places wouldn't. It would still be used in War Priest, 100%. But it probably won't be used in, say, Oryx. Yeah.
Right.
Or something like that. But I do think Well needs, 100% Well needs to get nerfed. But I do think Well doesn't get nerfed until other things get brought up or become more useful somehow, somewhere. That's just a problem, you know?
Yeah, it just helps too many people.
100% agree with you. Yeah, it's just like Div, where Div I don't think is a problem outside of creating a big bubble and being the most consistent
debuff in the game.
Debuff, because even though I had people come in chat yesterday saying, "Oh man, why are you getting people Divinity? It's going to be nerfed." I'm like, 15% is nothing.
That's nothing.
With 100% uptime, 15% is nothing. No one's going to use Hammer. Well, I guess Hammer Strike doesn't do it anymore. No one's going to use Tether. Tether's only 11 seconds. Divinity's up 24/7. The majority of the average team is going to always take advantage of 15% damage buff and 100% uptime versus 30% for 10 seconds. That being said, at least with Divinity getting nerfed, and if they ever do something to Well, that'll give the developers the freedom to make different raids that doesn't have to require the knowledge of, okay, we got to make sure Well can be accounted for in Div. But, who knows? Who knows? That's why I'm very excited about Lightfall, because maybe by the time we get to Lightfall, Div is even, I don't want to say worse, but different. Well, maybe gets a shaft and something else comes up. But, by that point, we're going to be Spider-Maning around the room, so it doesn't really matter.
You're going to be Spider-Man with a shotgun in PvP.
Yep.
Bono, what about you?
I don't know how it could be implemented. The only thing that sort of comes to my mind is more environmental interactivity. I don't know.
Like blowing up buildings?
Blowing up buildings, closing doors. I don't know how. I don't. But
doors in video games are a thing.
Yep. If an anti-barrier is there, you should be able to shoot, in PvP through a certain thickness of cover. Stuff like that. Another thing is, if your buddies, say your buddy's ghost is out in the middle of nowhere and he's just died in a hard thing and he's got a 10-second countdown and you can get to him right then and there. Can you imagine going up to your buddy's ghost, grabbing his ghost, running back to cover? He can now be rezzed, and then you res him.
That's cool.
Environmental interactivity.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Or how about this? You grab his ghost.
No.
This is teabagging me on me earlier. That's what happens when you take the heavy in trials, mate. Yeah, I don't know. It would be a completely different sort of type of game, but I feel like interacting with the environment around you. I love. Okay, I give you a thing. Running Inverted Spire last year as a GM, running in, and we realized we didn't have any solar shields to take out the phalanx when you jump over to the drill. You know what I did? I kicked along a fuel tank, down the ramps towards the solar shielded phalanx, pushed it towards him, shot it at the ground at him, blew up his shield. We then killed him that way. Match game's on, obviously. Solar damage. There's my solar damage. It's as simple as sort of that. I'd love to see more stuff like that. I don't know how. Again, it's us, saying this is broken and we don't know how to fix it. But
spaghetti.
I don't get paid the money to come up with the ideas. So
that'd be foundational changes, like you said. Like that's the kind of thing that would make Destiny not feel the same. It could be really cool. I like that. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've got a couple questions here for you guys from the audience that responded to the Twitter thread that I threw up. Rise of Bacon asks, as Sherpas, do you think the current discussions around the game's too easy are having a negative effect on aspirational content and the way people approach them? Example, is it becoming less teach me to improve and more cool, get me through this for the loot and I'm out?
I like that.
I don't see that. No. Well, I don't. That's just me.
Yeah.
But
I see it. I see it. Yeah, once upon a time, and it's not everyone, but yeah, it's definitely, you do see it. I see it a lot. Is I'll run this with you. I'll only rock up for this, and then once I get my loot, I'm gone. I'm sure you see it with sort of trials. People who run trials cards all weekend for people. It's not as much as people. I try to make it a big thing when I sort of run, raids and guides. It's not just to say you're going here, you're doing that. Why are you doing that? Why are we doing this? This is, provide understanding so they can then pass that knowledge on, or they'll know better for next time instead of just coming back again asking to be sort of brought through it or being carried through trials or whatever. Like that's me. So
you guys aren't seeing that in your communities
of people just wanting to play for rewards.
Yeah. I just want to get the loot.
Well,
I was saying anything master.
Because if the game, because the first part of the question was is the game too easy?
It was like
and
two parts. Yeah.
Is the game too easy? And
question.
are people just playing for rewards?
Yeah.
If the game's too easy, then they don't need to worry about that second part, right? So I don't know, but there's a reason I have a rule in my chat where you can't. If you ask to do ads, then you're doing the hardest job that there is. Because you don't get to just come in here and just get carried because you're nervous or whatever the reason. You don't get to just chill while everybody else gets to do the work. You don't get to ask to chill, at least. If I end up putting you on ads because that's the last spot that needs to be filled, then cool. You don't get to come in here and ask to do nothing. That's not a thing. So there are people that are like that.
Yeah.
And they just don't get to do it with me. But there are people definitely that just want the rewards and don't want to learn.
I like that. Good on you.
But with the game being too easy, I do think the game is too easy. But a lot of people just don't want to learn. And then for those people, the game isn't easy because they don't want to learn. They want to get the loot. So I don't know if that was what the question was asking, but
What was that question again?
I think they were like, do you think that the current discussions around the game's too easy? I know that there's the conversations around resilience and divinity, and the conversation that we had around
the conversation is hurtful or discouraging.
That it is discouraging people from aspirational content, or in the way that they approach them is the way.
I mean, that should make them want to do it more if they're like, well, it's easy.
Yeah,
if they're under the gun.
Yeah, if we were saying it's hard, that might be discouraging. But that's why I didn't understand.
I mean, it's discouraging if you see somebody who just accomplished something and then you try to be like, well, that's easy. That's always a terrible way to be.
That's true. I have had that mindset before.
Yeah.
But one something that's easy for one person is maybe not that easy for another. I'll never, if someone comes in and be like, yo, I just soloed something, and I'll never be like, go do something hard,
You never want to diminish anybody's accomplishment.
That because we all started somewhere, So I don't think one thing I feel like people forget is that those of us here have a lot of time and a lot of experience in the game, so we can engage in content from a different perspective than others. You know, if we spend a lot of time, say, helping other people do content, that in itself means that we are able to carry the load of multiple people on our backs.
Right.
We have to learn to play the game a little differently.
We have to learn to play the game a little bit differently than
a lot
others.
of patience.
A lot of patience. We know the game in and out, so we can help other people. That doesn't mean our perspective is incorrect. That just means for us, because we are able to handle multiple people's jobs at one time, we can feel that we're not being challenged as much as some random person that's just picking up the game. But it can be frustrating to just get into the game and hear someone like ourselves say that the game's kind of free or easy. But like they already said, that should make you want to get to our level, and that's probably the hopeful side of things. But it does seem a lot of people think that because we think the game is a bit too easy, that we're being elitist, you know, or something. But
that seems to be a lot of the conversation lately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
I think it's the way you
that
put
side.
that forth too. You know.
I think Rise also had some conversations that day, if I remember correctly, specifically with Mactix, and like how he was talking about resilience that day, and I believe Rise was like, I think there's kind of a weird, if I remember correctly, and I could be screwing this up majorly, he was saying, look, most of your content is like, I want to teach people how to do this, but your tweets are that things need to be nerfed that benefit the people that you're teaching. And if there was like some sort of like weird dissonance in those two thoughts being in parallel. That I think I remember that. It was, if I remember that correctly,
it can seem disingenuous to your viewers. You know, it definitely can. So like being consistent in your standing of like how you feel in the game is very important, because I've seen people that I look up to, you know, at least on stream, be very willing to help other people. But this is on the PvP side of things for the most part. But like, be very open to like wanting to help people and all that stuff, and then be on Twitter being like, this game's a snooze, you know, this is easy, this all that stuff, and it can be very jarring for people. So I mean, I don't 100% agree, but I understand where they're coming from. Yeah.
I mean,
some people ask, are you doing it for the views or the money and all that stuff? You know, because it's good to like make all the guides and stuff, but then
I don't see why that coincides with each other though. Like, if the people need help from you and you're helping these people in the current state, they're still gonna need help if it gets harder, right? Like, so like if that's the conversation that we're having, where nobody, I don't think, I haven't seen or heard anything about trying to make the game easier than what it is right now. I've seen zero people talk about this game needs to be a little bit easier for people. Just people, you know, trying to do pushback for people who want to make it harder. But the people who are getting helped now are gonna need help regardless. So I don't understand how that's separate from what you're doing and what you're saying. I don't see how that makes sense in the same.
It's weird. Yeah, it's weird because you have people. Everyone, I guess, connects things differently, but a lot of people definitely feel that if you spend a lot of your content around helping other people, whether it be in video guides, whether it be on stream and all that stuff, unfortunately they think you're doing it because the content for them is too difficult, which it's not. We all can say, of course it's not. That's not why we do it. We do it for all these other reasons. And at least to them, because I've seen it directed to me before, because this is why I stopped being very vocal on Twitter years ago. They like to do all this. Oh, you think because you have a decent raid report or you have all these people that you help all the time that you're better than me, you know? And I don't know if that's the response that people have in their head. You have 50 hours of play a week. You do all this stuff. Of course it's easy to do you. You're the 1% and all this stuff. It's silly. Yeah. It's 100% silly. But there are people that feel that way. And you can have a conversation around the health of the game without being elitist.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people fail to connect. Just because I'm passionate about the game and I want it to be better for the majority of the team of the community doesn't mean that I think the game is too easy. Doesn't mean that I think these foundational staples need to be updated from 2014 or 2017. You know, like we've all said, the community as the average has gotten a lot smarter and a lot more intelligent and more experienced. Doesn't mean that I think less of you as a player. I just, you know, am passionate about the game and want to see it move forward and be just always good. But
progress instead of stagnation.
Yeah, that's all.
I think we can all agree, like, you know, we're always learning sort of new things, especially like off each other. Like you log on in the morning, especially for me, you guys are all up sort of later than I am, and I'll wake up in the morning and some stuff has gone down, something new has been found. New videos come out and oh cool, yeah, I'll give that a try today. Thank you for making it known. So the fact that people can think that something's being directed right at them to, you know, you're talking down to me, like all that. It's like, man, like I do the exact same as B1 over here, bloody and he's just helped me out. He's just saved me fucking hours. So you know, it's. I don't know, man. I guess it's all about the people you happen to come across by chance, and so keep it up, peeps.
Yeah. So. Final question for the evening. Clean Plays asks, how can the PvP space learn from PvE Sherpas to create a more inviting space for all skill levels? Honestly, I feel like in each space, you have people who can learn from each other. I don't know if that's a cop-out answer or what, but like from the conversations that I have in this, doing this show, doing Planet Destiny previous, there are minds in both fields that want to see the game progress and want to see people succeed in achieving their goals, whatever those goals are. I think the disconnect there can be largely going back to socials, seeing people's presences and people making assumptions about people making assumptions is basically what social media is. And so like seeing that and being too heavily invested in that, I can see how like maybe some characters rise as whatever. But I honestly think both sides can learn from each other since it's part of the same game. It's the same game overall. Thoughts?
In what aspect? Learning from what? Because like PvP and PvE are very different when it comes to helping people, because in PvP, you're pretty much just being better than the opposite team, and the other person is just coming along, and you're doing comms with them, giving them some call outs, don't push, don't peek, yada, yada, yada. Where in PvE, you're telling people what the mechanics are and how things are going to work and where you should be positioned. It's sort of the same, but you're learning more in PvE than you're learning in PvP.
I guess it's less about like what the differences are and what the similarities are in the two. Like what it takes to be a good Sherpa throughout all of it, right? Like it obviously takes patience.
Yes.
It obviously takes knowledge of the game. We've just discussed that in the last question.
I think to touch on, to go further deep in diving into patience, It's understanding. It's putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And, you know, number one, how hard was it for them to reach out and ask for help? Number two, how hard was it for them to admit that they don't see themselves as confident or good at the game and all that? Mm-hmm. You know, you can learn a lot in first sort of few seconds of an interaction, and that's it's just basic human sort of science, social science, is that your mind is already made up about someone within the first 10 seconds. So like you got to get past that. You got to see past that, and not everyone is the same. No one has been through the same sort of experiences. You're never going to find two people exactly the same. So what makes you think that you're going to find the same player over and over and over again, or find your duo partner, or your clan mates, or the next Greppo in the person that you're about to bring through? You put yourself in their shoes, and you work with and you overcome sort of obstacles to give them the best experience, so they come back and they keep getting better. So I think that's it, is just understanding on the deepest level. So
yeah,
if that makes any sense, or call me out for being too corny, but that's what I wholeheartedly believe.
Yeah, I think a lot of the really amazing PvP players I know are all very young. Not to say that there's not like really good like older PvP players, but I mean, and it's no excuse, but they're still like young, immature, maybe aren't the best at creating the environments like an older person with that, understanding would create. So a lot of that comes with
Yeah, I just think it depends on the Sherpa, whether it's PvE or PvP. Because when I first started Sherping myself, I was not nice either.
Oh, yeah.
Like I started with whisper carries, and I would get upset if somebody couldn't do the jumping puzzle. And it's not their fault that they couldn't do the jumping puzzle. It's my fault that I couldn't solo this activity if they couldn't. And then I had to get better at the game, so that way I can solo this whisper mission. So no matter who I brought on, they would still get their whisper of the worm. And when I started doing that, I got less frustrated, because I'm in control now, and I'm not worried about who I'm trying to help, which I shouldn't be worried about them. I'm helping them. Like,
I thought you were going to say, because I am become God.
No,
his arms did go out to the side there, didn't they?
Yeah, they did go out. No, but like, it's never the person who you're taking through's fault ever.
No.
Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't. If you're PvP, if you're losing your game, it's not the person that you're bringing along's fault. They came and joined you so you can help them achieve what they can't achieve on their own. Otherwise, they don't need you. Just the same thing as PvE. You can't get mad at them if they're doing a mechanic wrong or anything like that, because they don't know anything. They came to you for help. So you have to make sure that they can do it, or you need to be better in order to cover their role when they can't.
Right. What do the kids say? Just adapt. Like it's
literally
that. Taking the toxicity out of that
issue.
Is you adapt, and it speaks volumes to a guide to Sherpa's skills to, change up the strat, change up the way they do things. To help get someone the best experience and to get the completion. So, it's up to you to explain it in as many different ways as you need to. Yes, you can get frustrated. Just don't, everyone gets frustrated and shit. But, it's, again, as we've said, it's not their fault. Everyone's different, and you just adapt. And when I've taken through people, not to bring it up again, but like, people who are hearing impaired, they can't talk. So what do? You go to text chat and you do that, or you not verbally but text. You come up with emotes. This emote means this, go to this area. This emote means that, go to that area. Most simple thing. You don't do that with people that you can verbally talk to. But for this situation, you're now, coming up with alternate lines of communication to get the job done.
Yeah. And you also have to, again, on adapting, know who you're teaching and how they receive certain types of criticism and stuff like that. Because there's some people who you would just tell them to change their loadout to something that's a little bit better, and they'll get offended that you're singling them out. Like, they'll get offended,
Right.
like as if you're calling. I'm like, bro, I'm not calling you out or anything like that. I'm just seeing what you're doing, yada yada yada. We need to change a couple things. Where other people you can straight yell at, and they'll be like, all right, I got it, bro, let's go. Like, and like they don't get offended at you straight up yelling at them type things. It's just two different levels of people that you have to deal with when you are teaching, and you have to figure out who these people are. And those are people you have to adapt to as well, because some people will literally take just an innocent, hey, just put on 100 resilience as being singled out and get offended. And then you have to change the way you're teaching that person, because you don't want to offend them. You want to get them through it, and you don't want, issues later on. So that's another thing.
You don't want a bad Yelp review.
You know,
My Guardian score.
Well, Dan, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, I really just echo everyone else's. I'm in agreement with pretty much everything. I mean, I've learned a lot from PvP helpers.
Yeah.
But like, I don't find many differences in regards to how a PvP Sherpa, if you will, or whatever, takes people through, and a PvE person. The only difference is there's more variables on the enemy. You know when an enemy is going to spawn, when this is going to happen. The only difference is in PvP you don't have the variable of what the other player is going to do.
Yeah,
that one thing. Everything else is literally the same. You know what you need to do. All of the prerequisites of, in order to achieve this goal, this has to happen. The only difference is the variables of who you're playing against, which it can teach you a lot on how to, best adapt if a player doesn't really know what to do. If a player is competent but just has never had a group that is also competent, and a person that's literally just looking for folks to game with, and how to adapt to that. I think the ability to adapt is the one thing I've learned the most from PvP players, because they have to deal with it more in a short time than I would. Although I guess depending on how long a card is, it might be as long, but they go through more variations of a player's skill level than probably, I guess, a PvE person would. That's probably the main thing. Being able to adapt is the biggest thing, no matter a player's skill level or experience level. And like CDub said, at the end of the day, your experience is way more important. Your skill level is way more important. Being able to carry a wider load to make their experience as smooth as possible happens in both PvP and PvE. That's why certain people go to certain PvP trials helpers, because they know no matter how bad they play, this person can carry them where they need to go. That's why you'll see people, in PvE, no matter how bad I am with my jumping, or I don't have the best gear or something, I know with this person, I can at least get a completion. They can carry me, if you will. I know we don't like to use the word carry for helping, but they can handle my inexperience or my, just not being able to do whatever. Some people don't have the best spatial awareness, being able to tell a person, don't extend too far away from the team, don't do this until I tell you to, because at least I know if this happens, this is going to happen. And if this person moves too far away from the team too early, this is going to happen. And being able to know, the more you know and encounter and what's going to trigger what, the more you can account for those variables of the person not knowing what to do or causing a wipe. That's why it's very important. At least I find it very important to be able to do every job, and then every job on top of that at the same time, So if a person messes up or is about to mess up, you know how to stop that from happening. Or being like, okay, don't kill this guy right quick. And they'll be like, why? Be like, oh, don't kill him because this is going to trigger this and all that. Kill him when I tell you to. You know, little stuff like that. I don't think you can do that in PvP as well because you have the other player variable. But at least being able to adapt is what I find most PvP streamers or just PvP helpers has taught me. Because I've seen some people who is literally throwing trials matches and the person having to adapt very, very well to that person's experience, and then be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I pressed my fire button, and oh, they were 1 health, but then they turned the corner and they're full, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
saw a lizard.
I mean, being able to handle stuff like that is what I've learned. Oh, I can take that to PvE myself, but that's probably the only thing.
Well, I believe pushing into 2.5 hours on this conversation. It's been great having you guys all here, and thank you all so much for giving your time and efforts and talents for this conversation. Let's go around and tell the people at home where they can find you on the internet, starting with CdoubleG.
You can find me on the internet at CdoubleG, CDOUBLEG, at pretty much everything. And if you need raid helps, I got you.
Bona?
BonaFideHiro, in whatever accent you speak in. It's BonaFideHiro. I had to really think then. And literally every single platform, I'm that, and I'm the big goofy red bearded guy you'll see all over the place. So, and if you need raid help, CdoubleG's up there. So.
No.
no, we do grandmasters all season and raids and dungeons whenever they come out. So, yeah, and CdoubleG's right there. So,
yeah,
cool.
Sarah, what about you? Where can people find you?
Just Twitter. I don't stream or anything like that, so just Twitter, I guess. Or if you're on Xbox, and it's just the Vertigo Vixen, I think. You know, Xbox, Twitter, but yeah, I'm always down to help whoever. You need anything, let me know.
Yeah.
Do you have a
Unless
Discord
it's
community
PvP.
or a Xbox group or anything?
Definitely not. We cut it loose.
No?
Yeah.
Fair.
Oh.
Gotcha. Well, EpicDan, what about you, sir?
Well, you can pretty much find me everywhere on the internet with just EpicDan22. Anything PVE, I like to just play. I used to do PvP helps, but after Beyond Light, I said I'm not good enough to do this anymore, so I stopped. But at least on the PvE side, you know, I have weird hours. So if you catch me, I got you. But I have weird hours.
Speak for yourself, Bona. So,
Dude, that's how I know.
Right.
Like he's finishing up when I'm starting. That's how I know.
my name's Danfinity. You can find me on Twitter, the Instagram, and the TikTok at Danfinity, where the eyes are else. You can also catch me 3 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/Danfinity, helping Guardians through in-game activities. If you would like to support the show, remember to rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. That is an entirely free way to support. This show is also subscriber supported, so if you'd like to give a few bucks a month to keep the lights on, head on over to coffee.com/Danfinity. That is ko-fi.com/Danfinity. All support links are in the notes for the episode. Stay spooky, Guardians, and I hope you find what you're grinding for.